So, Bleach. I set out, as of last week, to read through the first 70 chapters of Bleach. My goal in doing this was to, one, say that I've caught up completely with all of the big three, achieving that final Infinity Stone and ascending to God status, as a lifelong shonen tard that I am. But two, to understand what about it made it special. Because while yes, One Piece was the least talked about in the playground, Bleach was the black sheep in terms of concept. It was by far the series with the least color, the least memorable protagonist, shortest runtime, etc. And the lunch tables in my elementary school certainly weren't discussing whose Zanpakuto looked the coolest. 70 chapters in, and I believe I'm starting to understand that. So join me as I review the Agent of Shinigami arc. Meet Ichigo, a 15-year-old laid-back tough guy with a heart of gold. Immediately out of the gate, I could tell Ichigo wasn't your typical food-loving adventure seeker like Luffy or Naruto, or even Goku. The best out-of-universe equivalent I could think of was Bond from Seven Deadly Sins or Sanji from One Piece, without all the pervertedness, of course. So one night, after coming home from defending a little ghost girl's honor and whatnot, his home was intruded by a girl named... Wait, did you say ghost girl? Yeah, Ichigo and, to an extent, his younger sister, whose name I keep forgetting, have the ability to see spirits. Because of this, one night a girl named Rukia sneaks into his house, and on a mission to track down what's called a hollow, I'll discuss that later, but the short version is it's a ghost monster. Rukia is what's called a soul reaper, invisible to normal humans and tasked with the job of killing this ghost monster. Ichigo saw her when she entered through his window, and appalled by this, Rukia gets distracted. And when talking to him, the spirit monster gets Ichigo's younger sister, Yuzu, and Karin. Ichigo asks why it's after their sisters, and Rukia explains that they eat opportunistically, and also, when they can, for people like him with great spirit energy. In the middle of that explanation, she gets attacked by the Hollow. He yells at the Hollow to fight him like a man, and then goes for the attack. To save his life, Rukia steps in front of him, taking the attack. Ichigo asks how to stop it now that Rukia is injured, and Rukia says that Ichigo has to take her spirit energy to become a Soul Reaper. Now, when I tell you, this entrance, man, it's something else, bro. Alright, I'm talking specifically about the manga, by the way. The way they depict, the way Tite Kubo, the mangaka, depicts his, his entrance, masterclass. But I digress. After the sick introduction, Ichigo proceeds to obliterate the Hollow as Rukia regales in awe at Ichigo and his greatness. The next day, Ichigo wakes up and his family's wounds and such are fully healed, as well as their memories completely erased from that night. Ichigo goes to school as normal. And who's the new student? None other than Rukia Kichiki. He pulled her to the side and asks why she's there. She says that she's lost her soul energy and that he has to be her replacement until she gets back. Okay, so from there, the series is very much in setup mode, establishing the world and its mechanics, as well as the colorful cast of characters that we get to see as the story progresses. So there are 4 or 5-ish mini arcs before the plot starts to ramp up, and they're all very enjoyable and thought-provoking, but we're going to go over those 4-ish arcs, and then the next part will be where the plot ramps up, because I'm not doing everything this week. Part 1, Orihime's brother. This arc establishes Orihime's backstory, Orihime as a character, and as well as some information about what hollows are, and it was here where I got to see how Tite Kubo uses the mechanics of the world and the magic system to explore the themes. The story goes, Orihime crosses paths with Ichigo and Rukia, and says that she got hit by a car, of all things, but that it was okay, and that only her leg was bruised. Rukia examines it, and she goes on her way. That evening, Rukia gets an alert for a hollow in the area, and she and Ichigo are tasked with killing it. Now, earlier in the chapter, Rukia was telling Ichigo that he needs to be able to kill a hollow in one attack. We find out why when Ichigo attacks the hollow in more than one hit, and it is revealed to be Orihime's brother, who they were talking about earlier in the chapter. 2 interesting things came out of this. We know now that all hollows were once regular ghosts that hadn't yet passed on, and that 2 Soul Reapers are impartial cops sending hollows to the Soul Society. Anyways, the hollow was able to escape with minor injuries. The hollow goes to Orihime's house, where she's hanging out with her best friend Tatsuki, who is my personal favorite character, but more on her later, or maybe in the next video, whenever that comes up in the script. She's hanging out with Tatsuki, and Orihime's brother shows up. Orihime's brother knocks out Tatsuki and pulls out Orihime's soul out of her body. Ichigo and Rukia arrive in the nick of time to stop him from consuming her soul, and after that we learn about her backstory. Orihime and her brother lived in an abusive household when they were younger. They ran away together, and over the years, Orihime felt more like a daughter to her brother than a sister. One day they had a fight, and later that same day her brother had died. After her brother's death, she would pray for him daily, and he would hear her prayers. But as she got older, she would slowly stop praying to him as often, and one day she just stopped altogether. It was her lack of prayer, and her constant talk about Ichigo and Tatsuki that led him to turn from a ghost into a hollow. With her constantly talking about Ichigo Kurosaki and her best friend Tatsuki, it had felt like she was forgetting about him, causing loneliness and resentment. However, her side of the story was that she felt like she was only telling him about her sadness. It wasn't enough. He was going to consume her soul in order to make himself feel whole again, hence the name Whole and Hollow. The interesting thing is not that he gets stopped by being sliced in half, but by coming to the realization, with Ichigo's help, that she was feeling just as lonely as he was, and that her friends were what made it better. Ichigo tells him that to this day she still wears the hairpin he gave her, even though she hates it, because it was his last gift to her. With this, he turns back into a whole. He requests that in his last moment of clarity, he be allowed to pass on. Man, what a story. And this is just 3 chapters long. I really started to like what hollows represented after that. It was at this point where I stopped seeing them as ghost hunt monsters. I started seeing them as real people who'd been led down a terrible path. Okay, so editor's note, I originally had planned to review all 4 or 5 of the mini arcs before the big part in this video, but I'm realizing now that it takes forever to edit, so we're just gonna stop it right here. The next week we'll get the other part, and then so on until we get to the big part. Okay. Anyways, do the description. Do the things in the description. Get out. I'm done.